Part 2. Number 3. Comparing the two. As I said, superficially, the two stories seem the same. Once the story actually gets going in the movie, they would appear roughly the same if you were to read the respective Wikipedia pages, for example. However, were I to ask a person who has only seen the movie, what's the story about, I doubt whether he or she would give me the passionate summary I gave the comic in the first part, or something that's even remotely close. I doubt whether they'd even discuss themes, thought-provoking ideas, or inspiration the movie gave them. I've heard people use words like cool and creepy to describe this movie. That's not good enough. If you have read the comic, you'll know that those themes are there, and you'll be glad to see hints of them in certain scenes. However, the movie lost the themes among the mess they stirred, and it's not all due to the prologue either. I believe wholeheartedly that even if the movie had started where it was supposed to, the story would have less impact and be way dumber. Let me explain why. One of the most striking differences, and one that really weighs on the movie, is the aesthetic. The animation is actually not as bad as it looked in the trailers. For some reason, the footage in the trailers was slowed down and as a result looked choppy. The animation is fine, not great, not even close to Mask of the Phantasm or The Dark Knight Returns, but it's okay. The problem is that it's bland and soulless throughout most of the movie. One of the reasons why the comic was so influential is the perfect balance between art and substance. Brian Bolland's art is breathtaking, and it is the perfect way to bring Alan Moore's point across. In my opinion, the art is even better in the most recent edition, where Bolland did his own coloring. Whichever version you prefer, The Killing Joke had a very strong style. The art knew exactly where to point your attention, which details you would focus on, what images would end up haunting you. It was all deliberate, visual, and masterful. The art in the animated movie is mostly dull and lacks imagination. With the exception of one or two scenes that follow the comic panel closely, everything else is by the numbers and apparently rushed. A good example of this are the flashbacks. In the comic book, the flashbacks have a distinct look. Every time we go into Joker's possible past, the light changes and the colors become different, more melancholic. It's the perfect way to let us know that it's in the past or that it's pure imagination, and it changes the atmosphere completely. The flashbacks are also introduced, in the more recent version, by having our attention being focused to the color red, and certain visual cues that then lead us in and out of the flashbacks. Except for the final flashback, all of this is missing from the movie. The flashbacks come and go, using very basic fade effects that I can achieve with Windows Movie Maker. Also, in the movie the colors are only slightly different from everything else, and doesn't really work as well as it did in the comic book. The flashbacks happen without having a really strong impact. The designs of the characters are not bad, but they're not especially impressive either. They are also fairly inconsistent. The art looks leagues better when it's imitating Bolland's art, but in the other scenes it is far less impressive and therefore less impactful. Overall, the designs are not bad, but they're average. A lot of things in this movie are the bare minimum, and I have no idea why DC and Warner Brothers settle for the bare minimum, especially with our beloved stories such as The Killing Joke. Previously, I discussed the themes of the story and how fascinating they are. It goes without saying that the prose is also wonderful, being from the pen of the man who wrote Watchmen, V for Vendetta, From Hell, and so many influential works. The movie not only makes the themes underdeveloped, it also gets the point of the story wrong at times. They also felt the need to rewrite some classic lines from the comic in a different way, and the only result is that the dialogue feels more clunky and the prose less effective. Not to mention annoying Easter eggs like Batman yelling "Swear to me!" a nod to Batman Begins, which felt out of place and like a desperate attempt to make Batman fans like this movie. Maybe I'm just a minority on this small tidbit, but I rolled my eyes at that scene. Now, granted, the fact that the movie spent a third of its running time on another plot is one of the reasons why the main plot is badly developed, but it is not the only one. Sure, some of the flaws are due to them cutting corners and shrinking some scenes to fit everything in. However, I find the choice of what they left in questionable, and I find almost all the additions terrible. To put it simply, they took out good stuff and added crap. Not only did they waste 13 minutes, but they sacrificed some wonderful things in the remaining time to make space to lame, recycled ideas that don't belong to this story, and they also ruined some of the best aspects of the original. Here are some examples of what they mishandled. The monologue the Joker makes about the average man and how deformed he is in his values and beliefs is taken out, to make space for an action scene where Batman fights the circus attractions. Riveting. What people loved about the original is not the action, it's the story and the dialogues. If they wanted an action movie, they should have picked a different Batman story. There are plenty to choose from in the action department. What really irritates me, however, is that this action scene could have worked as padding in a better adaptation. I would have been okay with them adapting The Killing Joke and then adding some action scenes like this one to make it longer. I would also have been happier with a short movie that gets to the heart of the story, but I understand that they wanted a longer product. A few action moments scattered around the story between the dialogue-driven parts would have been okay. But these action scenes are not added, they are put in the place of other, better things. We lost a great monologue and got a lackluster action scene in return. The problem is not only the little time they had, but how they chose to use that time and how they missed the mark on what makes this story, or any story for that matter, powerful. Another example of how they completely missed the mark is the scene where Joker subjects Gordon to a trial. A trial meant to prove Batman is a criminal and Gordon is an enabler. A scene that is not in the comic because it's out of place and it revolves around the wrong themes. The point of the scene is that Joker wants to prove Batman is a criminal and Gordon is a hypocrite. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that the Joker wants to prove anyone can break and be like him, that we are all capable of becoming insane, and that it's the rational thing to do in an irrational world. It is not a personal quest to discredit Batman or Gordon. This trial scene makes everything seem pettier. It is also a recycling of ideas that were better used in the animated series, in episodes such as Trial and Over the Edge. I'm sure some people will dismiss this criticism by saying that I'm just too obsessed with the original, but here's the thing. This scene adds to the general confusion the movie creates, and the result is that the point of the whole story is lost. In the comic, the point the Joker is making is clear. The themes are there to be analyzed and thought about. There are two clear philosophical stances facing each other, Batman's and Joker's. The movie added and took out so much, shuffled things, and wrote in scenes that do not follow the point of the story. In this jumbled mess, all they can do is enjoy some of the action and perhaps think superficially about these ideas. The movie has so many different things in it that nothing is developed properly. It does not give the viewer time to appreciate the ideas or think about them. Its goal is to distract you and fill the second half. And that's all it does.
That's all, folks.
A minor, but still annoying, example of how they missed the mark is the scene where Batman interrogates a group of hookers. Azzarello, who for some reason always feels the need to put hookers in a story, must have read the comic and seen the panel where Batman questions a couple of hookers. In the comic, it's clear Batman is just asking anyone if they've seen the Joker. The hookers are no more relevant to the Joker's character than thieves or pimps or anything else. They're all inhabitants of the criminal underworld, and Batman is asking everyone because he's desperately trying to find the Joker and Gordon. Here, they decided to add the awful idea, and I mean awful idea, that Joker always goes to see hookers when he escapes Arkham. Seriously, they say it's the first thing he does every time he escapes. Now, I don't know why Azzarello feels the need to make Joker a sexual maniac or a rapist. He did the same in his standalone comic called Joker. But it's very out of character. And even if you were to tell me that I shouldn't be so obsessed with loyalty to the character, here is my rebuttal. Is the character improved by adding this? If not, why even bother? The Joker is not a sexual being. His drives are not the same as a normal person. He lives to hurt, manipulate, and break people. He enjoys pain and chaos. To make him a guy who runs to the hookers as soon as he is free doesn't add anything to the character. It cheapens him. It makes him look pathetic and average. It makes him look like any other crook in Gotham. The Joker is a monster. He's not just a crook. He is beyond that, which is why it's so hard to predict what he'll do and why the police, and even other criminals, fear him so much. He is hard to understand. Just like Batman is an extreme human being in a positive way, for the most part, the Joker is an extreme human being in a negative way. The Joker is not the kind of guy who you can find by simply waiting outside of a brothel. I am amazed that no one understood this while writing or reading the script. Now, I know some people will say, what about Harley Quinn? Doesn't Joker have sex with her? Aren't they a couple? Personally, I prefer the Joker as a solitary being, and he was a solitary being for most of his history. Harley Quinn was not created until the animated series and Paul Dini back in the 90s, after The Killing Joke. The story is based around the Batman-Joker relationship, and anyone else is out of place. This should be a story, a world, where the Joker only cares about Batman and proving a point. Anything else is irrelevant. However, I like Harley Quinn as a character, at least the original take they had in the 90s. And I love Paul Dini. In fact, I would have loved to see him write this movie. The thing is that Harley Quinn, despite what people like to think, is not that important to the Joker, and they are definitely not a love story. She is not his love interest. He does not love her. He loves no one. All he does is hate people and obsess over Batman. His relationship with Harley is about power and control, not love. And sexual acts, if at all present, are merely done to pass the time and are not of huge importance to him. They are definitely not his main drive. He enjoys controlling her, and he enjoyed breaking her spirit. That's the kick he gets out of it. He loves the fact that he was able to manipulate her like that. It is not about love, no sex. And Paul Dini knew this when he created the character. He knew this was the only way to make it work.
And now all this gal wants is to settle down with her lovin' sweetheart.
You and the Joker?
Right-a, Rooney! I've never seen you laugh before. I don't think I like it. Cut it out! You give me the creeps!
You little fool. The Joker doesn't love anything except himself. Wake up, Harleen. He had you pegged for a hired help the minute you walked into Arkham.
Harley loves Joker. The Joker uses Harley. I'm sure some will say that in Mad Love, Harley Quinn's origin story, it is implied they have sex. However, I would like to point out that in that story it's made very clear that Harley likes having sex with the Joker. She is the one who desires him and loves him in her dysfunctional way. She is the one initiating sex and asking for attention. The Joker ignores her in the story, despite her being in lingerie and making numerous sexual innuendos. He ignores her because he's more interested in planning his next criminal move against Batman. He ignores her because he doesn't care about her or about women in general, if not superficially or for brief amounts of time. It is not a priority to him. That's who the Joker is, a man obsessed with getting Batman's attention. He is definitely not a man who thinks about hookers. In making him so adds nothing to him as a character. It just takes away from the pure evil, almost supernatural vibe we love in the character. To focus on this is simply a waste of time, and this movie knows everything about wasting our time.
Nope. Which is funny.
Funny.
Yeah, he usually comes around here right away. Like before it's even on the news, he broke out of the nut house again. He's had a roll.
You'd think the most important thing for him is to...
What?
Have a good time.
Now that's not funny.
Initially, I hoped this review could be done in 2 parts. However, there are so many things wrong with this movie that 2 parts are not enough. Meet me in the 3rd part, where we will discuss other aspects of this movie and we'll keep comparing the original with the adaptation. Continued in part 3.